All right, now let's turn to my stock of the day. That is, drumroll please, Tesla. The company rolling out its much anticipated Robotaxi in Austin over the weekend, but only for a select few passengers, a who's who of Tesla influencers. Of course, the taxis drove in a small portion of the Texas city with a Tesla employee in the front seat for safety. Jumping into the Yahoo Finance platform, you can see this hype test comes during a lot of hope for Tesla's earnings potential. The company has a trailing price to earnings multiple of 184 times. You're actually seeing that correctly, guys, and a forward PE of 166 times. For perspective, the S&P 500, it's only at 21 times. Still with me is my roundtable of pros, Chad Morganlander, Senior Portfolio Manager at Washington Crossing Advisors, Tim Rabinowitz, Chief Investment Strategist, Innovator ETFs, and of course, Yahoo Finance's very own Julie Hyman. Julie, I know you're a big Tesla fan, so I think you're going to set the tone for this one. Robotaxis floating around streets, driving by themselves in Austin. I'm trying to figure out when this actually starts making money for Tesla, because you saw the PE multiples I just mentioned here at the top. This stock continues to be priced for perfection at a time where earnings estimates for Tesla continue to tank.
Earnings, if you're a Tesla bull, you don't care about numbers,
wow.
right?
I knew I started with the right person here, Julie.
You care about vibes. You care about the future. You care about the $1 trillion autonomous opportunity that Dan Ives, whose pictures we were showing, is always talking about here, and other bulls like Kathy Wood over at ARK. But you really, sort of put your finger on it when you said it's sort of influencers who are invited to this thing. You know, Jordan Klein, who's a desk analyst over at Mizuho, in his morning note, he said, first of all, he said this seems like a yawn, the whole event, but he said Tesla controlled the event and tests a lot, handpicking many of the test riders, knowing they are big Tesla supporters.
I didn't see you there, Julie.
Like
didn't see you.
What I would like to see is someone who is not a huge Tesla bull get in one of these cars and give me a review.
Chad, I didn't see you out there in Tesla land driving these taxis around. I love what you said about your holding of Lockheed Martin at the top of the show. 15 times forward earnings. What do you think when you see Tesla getting driverless cars out there, but the forward P is 166 times? Has to drive you crazy, right?
Brian, there's a lot of jazz hands going on here. It's 10 times revenue. You have a multiple that's insane. And then there's another company, a little company called Alphabet, which, for full disclosure,
yeah, we've heard of them.
I own and personally and Washington Crossing owns. And that's trading at a 16 times next year multiple. And they have something called Waymo. So Waymo has been proven, it's working in many cities. And we believe that this whole Robotaxi idea that you're going to let your car go out in the middle of the night and pick up drunk people is perhaps, just to make money, is perhaps a little bit foolhardy. So
Tim,
we'd be more mindful about owning Tesla. We would pick Alphabet instead.
Chad, would you actually get in one of these to drive? Would you take a ride in this?
I would definitely take a ride in it. And you know what? This technology is wonderful. Don't get me wrong. This is perhaps going to work. But Waymo is light years ahead of them. They're perhaps going to just sell their software package to other companies like General Motors, Toyota, and whatnot. And they're going to go the route of Microsoft when it comes to the software distribution. They have yet to announce that, but it's pretty obvious what their game plan is.
Tim, I know you're ditching all your cars and you're going to be a Robotaxi fan. I just see, I get that vibe. I just get that vibe.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, and I kind of see both sides here. I hope Julie doesn't kill me, but I'm kind of in the same boat there. You look at that multiple; it's hard to imagine them growing into that in any short period of time. And Brian, as with anything that we've seen from Tesla, it always takes longer than Elon thinks and investors think. So we have to be really conscious of that. But I do think the growth story or the innovation story is there, and that's going to drive hype, and that's going to drive the stock price in the short term. A lot of what our clients are doing is using a risk-managed approach to get exposure to stocks like Tesla and the NASDAQ 100 as a whole with strategies like QFLR, where they're putting a floor, a 10% floor against losses on their NASDAQ exposure. But they're still maintaining that upside. If this hype continues to drive these stocks like Tesla higher, they're participating, but they also have that risk management in place. With that multiple, that stock could fall pretty hard, and other stocks there as well. So we think that's a prudent approach right now.
Hey,
All right,
Sus, don't
Yep.
get me wrong. I'd love to ride in one
Yeah.
of these things, right? Or I'm psyched that Waymo is coming to New York City. Bring me the Tesla Robotaxi. But, when you're coming at it from an investment perspective, you have to separate what you think is cool and what you think is a good investment.
All right, let's leave the panel there. Julie Hyman, I'll see you back at your desk. Chad Morganlander, good to see you. Tim Rabinovitz, appreciate you guys coming on.
Checking back in on Tesla, the company launching its highly anticipated Robotaxi event in Austin over the weekend. Yahoo Finance senior autos reporter Pras Subramanian joins us now on this. And of course, guest contributor Jay Woods still with us. So Pras, did the event live up to the hype going into it?
I mean, I'm looking at this stock move right now, up over 10%. I was shocked because pre-market it was up 1%, a little bit like that. All of a sudden, huge gains today. I mean, look, it was a small test. 10 to 20 vehicles operating down in Austin. You've seen a lot of videos of people, Tesla fans, people like that, who were able to get in on the test, tweeting about it, showing one guy did 11 trips, he said yesterday, right? No issues so far. But look, it's a geofence test as safety operators, including a teleoperator too. So not exactly a full Robotaxi sort of experience, but apparently a successful launch yesterday. I got to ask about, scale. How do you scale this business? That's a question that Dan Levy had, like a great test today, but what happens down the line? So I think there's some issues there, but for Tesla bulls and the stock right now, I'm surprised at the 10% move.
Yeah, and so Jay, as we think about that 10% move and how investors are reacting here, we know that for the animal spirits, there's typically a ton of bullishness within the Tesla name. However, we have seen some of the bears have their way with the stock over the year too, given Elon Musk's annexation to the White House, but now reinserting himself in a lot of the day-to-day operations at Tesla.
Yeah, I'm surprised at this move too, up 10% and climbing. I look at it technically, if this breaks 365, you've got some smooth sailing ahead. Some of the things we haven't talked about is the de-escalation of the war of words between the president and Elon Musk himself. And then, as you mentioned astutely, it was a limited number of rides in a strict area, and it was influencers in the back of the car. What are they going to say? They're I don't know if they're paid influencers to go into these cars, but it was very optimistic. But I still sit back and say, Waymo is in 8 cities and they don't have geofencing. They're going slowly, smoothly along. They just lack the magnanimous leader that is Musk. So I think Musk himself showing that this is a success, a big step forward, much needed, and then de-escalating the war of words with Trump is really what's got investors excited. But to me, every time I talk negatively about the stock, I don't know, we should talk about this off air. The internet blows up, you're evil, and it trades like a Colt stock. And right now, the Colt is very happy.
Yeah, I think that you hit the nail on the head right there with the Musk is back on his main quest, they say, right? Mm-hmm. He's no longer part of the government. He's strictly supposedly devoted to Tesla and all his other companies. And that's probably a big part of the enthusiasm. They said they're going to launch it on 22nd. They actually did it. It's happening. But like you said, what about the general public? When are we going to be allowed to do that? That's a big question, I think.
Yeah. Another big question here, too, as we're in the auto space that we're considering here. Today's the first day for Stellantis' new CEO. So what's the road look like ahead there at the brand and at the company?
So he made a couple moves here in the executive ranks, nothing too crazy. One smaller executive was pushed out. Veloso is going to actually remain North American head as well as a global CEO. He is a known quantity there. They like him. He's Italian. Most of Stellantis leadership now is in Europe, even though it's a big 3 company. So it's all working well there. But I think the big issue is, can he repair the dealer relationships? The dealers are very upset with the past CEO Tavares about just sort of the moves he made, price changes he made. I think that's the big issue, is repairing that reputational damage. And also UAW, right? The workers were upset about what's happening in Belvidere, Illinois. Can he repair that? Can he get those factories online? We'll see. I don't know if it's a big ask, but as of right now, things are looking good for Veloso.
All right, we're going to continue to track that very closely. Pras, thanks so much for joining us, breaking down all things mobility. And when are you taking your Cybercab ride?
If only they'll send me to Austin anytime soon, I'll gladly take one of these rides. I've done Waymo, by the way. It's great.
I'll send a Slack after the show. How about that?
Tesla shares ride higher after the EV maker's launch of its Robotaxi service in Austin. The company starting off with 10 to 20 Model Y SUVs running as Robotaxis in a geofenced area of Texas. For more on what this all means for Tesla and the road ahead, let's welcome in here TD Cowen equity analyst Itai Michaeli. Itai, it is good to see you. So over the weekend, Itai, I did see Dan Ives over at Wedbush. Now we know Dan Tesla bull of bulls, of course. He attended this event. Here's what he said. He even took some rides, Itai. He gave us the summary. He gave us the after-action report. He said, these robo-taxis exceed our expectations and offered a seamless and personalized travel experience that has lit the spark for autonomous driving. Is that how you see it, Itai? Has it lit the spark?
Oh, thank you for having me. Day one does seem like it was successful. There were two aspects of the launch that were better than what we would have expected coming in. The first is where the vehicles actually operated, or the operational design domain, was larger than what we would have expected. And some of the pickup and drop-off activity looked pretty impressive for a first day in a Robotaxi operation. It's still premature to draw meaningful big picture conclusions from a single day, but so far a pretty impressive launch, and we'll kind of have to monitor it in the weeks and months ahead.
Itai, how quickly and aggressively do you think Musk can expand this service across the country?
I think their strategy of a measured approach is the right one. Safety is paramount. We've seen situations in the past where robotaxi networks had safety issues, and some of them actually shut down as a result of it. And so we want to first and foremost monitor the safety record, rider, and stakeholder feedback in the weeks and months ahead. Does the operational design domain expand from where they are currently? Does a fleet size expand from here? But going at it slow, particularly given Tesla's lead relative to other car companies in the autonomous vehicle space, does give them some breathing room to move slowly. And so execution around that is key. I think if all goes well, probably in the next few months, investors will be asking what the next city could be. And for us, we're also really watching what ends up happening to the consumer fleet, where there's maybe an overlooked opportunity, frankly, in the Tesla autonomous vehicle story to roll out eyes-off FSD features that could both complement the robotaxi fleet and lead to new services and features for consumers that can drive up not only new revenue streams for Tesla, but also vehicle demand itself.
In this space, Itai, Musk has plenty of competition. He's got Waymo, and Amazon Zoox is in there. And when your clients are asking you what you think his competitive advantages are, what do you tell them?
Sure. Cost is one of them. Speed is another. And the talent they have at Tesla. This is a $1.5 trillion mobility market in the U.S. The rideshare industry today is only about $60 billion. So we still have a lot more to go. And we think Tesla's competitive advantage could really allow them to deploy AVs, both robotaxis and consumer AV features, in less dense MSAs, where today the rideshare market is not particularly highly penetrated. And because of Tesla's cost advantage, because of things like shadow mode validation that they can use from their existing fleet, we think they have an opportunity to launch robotaxis in markets that are today less penetrated and complement those with consumer vehicles, and also, of course, lead to new features and services as well. Think of the vehicle getting your deliveries in the middle of the night. Think of dropping you off at the movie theater and picking you up later on. Features that you could charge for, and of course, can create an unprecedented proposition for consumer demand across Tesla's vehicles. And we know, of course, demand has been more challenged in recent quarters. So we look at the AV story as very complementary to the overall EV story and demand story at Tesla. But cost and speed really are key advantages they have today.
Itai, before I let you go quickly, of course, if you're a Tesla investor, you're listening right now, you got some other big dates on the calendar, Q2 deliveries, Q2 results. What are you watching for there?
Sure. The next data point will be Q2 deliveries. Some of the data points are still waiting on a few more, have shown some continued pressure thus far in Q2. And of course, the earnings call, we'll expect to see not only the numbers, but I'm sure the next maybe formal update around the next steps of the AV journey, maybe more stats within the Austin deployment, and of course, the road ahead from there, all are going to be closely watched in the weeks ahead.
Itai, great to have you on the show today. Thank you, sir, as always, for your time.
Thank you.
Tesla shares went downhill today as more negative data emerges in its core auto business. Yahoo Finance's Praz Subramanian joins us now with more. Praz.
Tesla European sales down per the ACA trade group in May to about 13,800 units. That's down 27.9% compared to a year ago. Meanwhile, overall sales in the region were up 25% in Europe, and this despite the new Model Y being available. So what's going on here, Josh? It's kind of more of the same that we've been talking about. There's the Musk factor alienating buyers with this supportive far right-wing figures. And of course, there's better competition from Chinese makes like BYD, SAIC, as well as Volkswagen, right? The legacy automaker. So same story in Europe, demand evaporating. The big question is, will it ever recover?
Praz there with the headlines. Let's bring back in our expert contributor now, Fundstrat Global Advisors Mark Newton, to discuss some recent moves with Tesla. You look at the technicals on this one, Mark. What do you see?
It's encouraging. The stock's been up 15% over the last 3 months. I mean, obviously, it's had a tough first half of the year. Always discouraging when a stock becomes more political. But honestly, Tesla's back half of the year is shaping up to be very, very good. I mean, they had a great first weekend with this Robotaxi rollout. We know that the combination of both FSD and self-autonomous both could account for potentially $1 trillion in the next 5 years. And a lot of that is not being shown right now in the current data. So it is sort of a show me stock. Elon always overpromises and to some extent has underdelivered, but yet the stock is something that is very promising for me. I like the stock a lot. I think getting back above 349 would put it back towards new all-time highs. And so I'm bullish. My cycle projections show the stock continuing to rise in the back half of the year, much different than the first part of the year. So I like it.
Praz, let me ask you just back to fundamentals there. When you think about competition for Tesla in Europe, where is that primarily coming from, Praz? I mean, is it China, domestic, European players, both?
Yeah, you see some upside sales here for BMW, right? And also Volkswagen. I mentioned a lot of new smaller models coming out that are playing in spaces that Tesla isn't operating. Same with the Chinese automakers. They're not operating that sort of cheaper market, the sub 25,000, 30,000 euro market where those other players are operating. Now, Tesla's long been saying that they are going to come out with this cheaper EV. They've been saying that now for the past year. We haven't seen it yet. We're all kind of anxiously waiting to see what it is. What is it going to be? A smaller car? Is it going to be like a decontented Model Y? We'll see. But what Mark was saying is absolutely right, because talking about technicals too, this stock is totally divorced from fundamentals, right? We talk about poor European sales, stock down a bit, but it's been up a lot recently. The stock is a momentum stock, right, Mark? And I think that as you see in second half of the year, seasonality-wise, that stock tends to do better.
Yeah, absolutely right. Look, you look at the first part of the year, a lot of these sales are from a time when Elon was still affiliated with the administration, and so it might not account for the current day. It's more of what happened in recent history. And I think that sentiment should start to change, in my view, going forward.
All right, thank you, Praz. And a big thank you, of course, to Mark Newton for hanging us with this afternoon. Some final thoughts, Mark.
NASDAQ 100 at new all-time highs. I think NVIDIA at new all-time highs. S&P will get there sooner than later. At a time when breadth is slowly but surely starting to expand, that's a good sign. At a time when the economy seems to be working, earnings are good, and geopolitical risks are easing. So investors don't seem to be all in on stocks by a long shot. People are still concerned for the right reasons. That's generally a time you still want to stick with the trend with markets at new highs.
Not so much a technical question for you, but a question for a guy who's watched the markets for a long time. You go back to early April, to Liberation Day, right? Sky is falling, run for the hills. What do you just make of the move here? Are you surprised by how fast and hard we've come back?
I look at sentiment, I look at cycles. I think they're more important for me in determining where prices can go rather than Fed speak or earnings or any of those. So, there were classic signs of capitulation that happened at the April lows. And I put out a report actually in April that said stocks are close to bottoming. I am surprised, of course, that we're back at new all-time highs. You can see a bounce, but the fact that tech carried through as quickly as it did, very, very encouraging. For my great-great-grandfather, Isaac Newton, you don't ever want to fight trends. Things that are accelerating cannot be moved without sufficient force. So, look, technically things are in great shape, and sentiment has been a key reason why investors want to stick on board and try to divorce themselves from what's happening in the world and just concentrate on their portfolios.
When you call that, Bob, did you get any pushback from clients on that?
I get a lot of pushback,
Yeah.
of course. I mean, I think that people think you're crazy when we see markets selling off to the extent they did, specifically in late March. I happen to be in Latin America, and so trying to write reports while being in Medellin and Lima, it's not fun to have to go back and address the volatility, and people look at you a little funny. So happy that things worked out, and it's encouraging to see both Tom Lee and myself have been optimistic and saw reasons as to why stocks should have bottomed and pushed higher. And still reasons for optimism, I think in the back half of this year, even if we get a bumpy fall. So happy for the recovery.
Mark, great to have you on set today.
Likewise,
Thank you, sir.
Great to be here.
Great to have you.
At the same time, you've got Tesla's head of manufacturing, Omead Afshar, has reportedly been fired by CEO Elon Musk. Yahoo Finance reached out to Afshar and we received a bounce back. Afshar reports directly to Musk and just this week thanked him on social media for, quote, pushing us all in reference to Tesla's Robotaxi launch. Pras, what do we know and how close was Afshar to Musk?
So Afshar was potentially sort of brought on the company. This is according to Walter Isaacson's book on Musk. Brought on the company. A favorite of Musk's was in his sort of CEO office as almost a de facto chief of staff, and then because he trusted him so much, he expanded his role. In this case, oversaw the development of the Austin plant, which is a big deal. So it kind of had a manufacturing title there, but he's still mostly reports directly to Musk, and he was like a Musk favorite. So seeing him sort of drop in the reporting, I think Forbes reported that he actually was fired by Musk. And it's sort of in line with seeing the weakness in the auto biz. Is that possibly why, or did Afshar leave on his own? Unclear, because obviously Tesla does not respond to media requests. And I emailed Omead earlier today and got that bounce back that said the email is no longer active, meaning it was at one point, not anymore.
Tesla's latest sales numbers due out soon. The EV maker contends with continued demand weakness and brand issues surrounding CEO Elon Musk's time working for Doge under President Trump. Here with what to expect from the numbers, we've got Yahoo Finance senior autos reporter Pras Subramanian. Pras, what do we know?
Hey, Brad. So another rough quarter for Tesla's core auto biz is sort of expected for Q2. So looking at the expectations as tabulated by Bloomberg, expecting around 395,000 deliveries for Q2. That's down 11% from a year ago. Production of around 405,000, also down. This is the new Model Y, is on sale in most territories in the world. But this shouldn't be seen as a surprise, right? These lower numbers. We've seen weakness in Europe in April and May. Also weakness in the US via registration data, which is sort of a proxy for sales. So, you mentioned that Musk is now away from politics. He's sort of gotten back to his quote unquote main quest. Will people forget about his foray into politics? I don't think so. It's still kind of fresh right now. He's still tweeting about a number of things like that are not germane to the auto business. But, look, most of Wall Street is bulled up on the Robotaxi test, right? That's happening right now in Austin in a very limited nature. If that goes well, if we see more of those cars on the road, maybe that'll help the bull story. Because the stock is not doing so bad compared to how bad deliveries have been in Q1 and potentially in Q2.